What's up guys, my name is Aaron and today I'm going to be reviewing Starboy. This is the third studio album by The Weeknd. He is a Toronto-based alternative R&B singer, songwriter. Somebody that I've been following since his mixtape House of Balloons came out in 2011. I've always been really captivated by his sound. I felt like he was really bringing a lot of things that were different to R&B music. Like he had like a kind of an alternative and indie aesthetic that I liked. It kind of made it sound a little bit different than anybody else. His lyrics were a lot darker, dealing with like drugs, sex, stuff like that, and I felt like he really brought a lot different to R&B music. All the mixtapes that he made, House of Balloons, Thursday, Echoes of Silence, I feel like all those are really great. They're different from each other, but they really do have that captivating sound, but they each have their own twists on that sound. Kissland, I felt like that was kind of derivative of that sound. It didn't really bring a lot of things different to it. I felt like it was like okay at best. There are some songs I do like, but overall it's not really that great of a project. Beauty Behind the Madness, I feel like that was like 2 steps forward for him. I felt like he really expanded on his sound, like going into more of like a pop sound, but you know, still having the darkness behind his music. Songs like Shameless I really love. I felt like that was a really great track. Yeah, this album is kind of like Beauty Behind the Madness, but not maybe as good. I felt like there were a lot of things to like by this album, but it's not as good as Beauty Behind the Madness, even though I think it's still a solid album for The Weeknd. The production is still, you know, really dark, really moody R&B music, and there are some 80s inspired pop dance tracks on this album as well. False Alarm is probably the biggest change for him, like aesthetic wise. I feel like that almost sounds like an 80s punk rock song, kind of like something that would come from Bad Brains. I love the chugging guitar chords that are on that track, the frenetic drums, and the yelling on that track as well. It really gets you hyped. The song Party Monster really feels like a mix of this dark R&B with trap sounds in it, and it also has some 80s guitar rock in it as well, with the guitar chords that are playing in that track, the hard-hitting drums on that track as well, and there's also like an ominous synth that plays throughout that track as well. It gives off a really sinister vibe that I like. The song Secrets I really love. It really has like this dreamy rock vibe to it, and it makes sense because it samples Tears for Fears, an 80s band. I love the sugary guitar chords that are playing throughout that track, the bouncy echoey drums on that track as well. It just really gives off really nice vibes, and it really sounds really pretty. The song I Feel It Coming really feels like a Michael Jackson ripoff song to me, but it sounds really good in spite of that. The groovy bass line on that track is just so infectious. The plucky guitar leads are really cool as well. I love the simple drums of that track. I feel like that's probably my favorite song on the entire album. It just sounds so nice. Yeah, I feel like the production on this is mostly really consistent. I would say about 85% of the beats on this I really enjoyed. And I like the features as well. They're pretty scarce, but they do fit The Weeknd's like perspective. Lana Del Rey's on 2 tracks on this album, and I feel like her presence really fits with The Weeknd's sound the best. She really has like the same type of music. Like I feel like The Weeknd's music really talks about this girl or whatever that he's like affecting with his drugs, sex, and you know, his lifestyle, and I feel like Lana Del Rey's perspective is that girl that he's talking about, and she's like kind of, you know, suffering because of that. And I feel like because of that, their music just really meshes really well together, and whenever they do collaborate, I always look forward to it. She's on the song Party Monster. You can kind of hear faintly on that track, and the Stargirl Interlude is probably one of my favorite tracks on this album as well. I love how she sounds over this kind of dreary downbeat beat. She really fits that really well, and then when The Weeknd comes in, it just sounds so great to me. I feel like Future really comes across in this album really well too. He's kind of like the trap version of The Weeknd. He kind of talks about the same stuff as The Weeknd, but he kind of does it through more of like a hip-hop vibe. I liked his presence on songs like All I Know and 6 Feet Under. I feel like he brought a lot of kind of dimensions to this album. I like Daft Punk on this album as well. They brought their unique flair to The Weeknd's music, like on songs like Starboy, which I thought was kind of like a minimalistic banger, and then of course Feel It Coming. I feel like that was a really great track as well. I love their kind of vocoder sound on that track as well. The only one I didn't really feel really meshed well with The Weeknd was Kendrick Lamar. He gave a good verse, but I just felt like his presence was kind of weird on this album. It just was kind of jarring to me on the song Sidewalks, even though it's a good song. I feel like his singing is still pretty strong in this album as well. I feel like he's, you know, kind of evolving as his music career is going on. Like I said, on I Feel It Coming, I feel like that's like really like a Michael Jackson kind of vibe to it. He's singing in more of like a lower register for that track, and I feel like that fits his voice really well. Same thing for the song A Lonely Night. I feel like that song really comes across really well too, because he's singing kind of in a lower register, but you can kind of hear him go higher at moments. I feel like when he kind of stays in that lower register, his voice comes across pretty well. I feel like the singing for the most part is where the album kind of shines. There are some moments where he kind of focuses a little bit too higher on the, you know, higher register, and there are some moments where he uses autotune, but Mostly, I feel like it's pretty good. The lyrics, I felt like that's kind of where he was on autopilot for this album. I feel like he was kind of regurgitating the same stuff that he usually goes over. I like in the song Reminder, he was talking about how he was nominated for a Kids' Choice Award for the song I Can't Feel My Face. You know, he's kind of talking about like that song is pretty much about cocaine, but you know, it's nominated for a Kids' Choice Award, and that's kind of crazy. And I feel like that was really interesting. But for the majority of the album, he's pretty much talking about, you know, sex, partying, girls, regret, stuff like that. You know, same Weeknd stuff that he usually talks about. But yeah, I feel like with this album, if it had been cut to maybe 12 tracks, it would have been really great. I would have probably been thinking this is probably one of the best albums of the year. There are a lot of filler on this album to me. It feels like the song Attention and Ordinary Life kind of comes across as kind of generic Weeknd songs. They don't really bring a lot of flair to the Weeknd sound or anything like that. And the song Rockin, even though it is out there and it's different than what the Weeknd usually does, it comes across as like an H&M song that they would be playing in the background of H&M. It just doesn't really do anything for me. Yeah, I feel like stuff like that and a couple more songs, if he had cut them, it would have been like a more concise, clear album to me. But overall, I feel like it was a good album. There were some out there beats that I really enjoyed, and some of the more typical Weeknd beats that he usually has really stood out for me. Majority of the album, I did like the beats. I feel like the features fit for the most part. I feel like Lana Del Rey and Future really came across really well to me. They really complemented the Weeknd sound to me. And I like the singing. The singing was pretty good for the most part. There are some parts where he focused a little bit too much on the higher register. I feel like the autotune didn't really do a lot for the Weeknd's voice, but for the most part, the singing was pretty good. I feel like the lyrics were really on autopilot for this album, and that kind of, you know, deterred my enjoyment of it. And I feel like there was noticeable filler that you could have cut on this album, and it would have been like a more concise album to me. Overall, I would give this a B. I think this is definitely a solid album, something you should go ahead and listen to. I feel like it's kind of a step down after Beauty Behind the Madness, which I thought was really concise. I've really felt like a lot of evolution in the album, and this one, it just didn't feel that much to me. So what did you guys think? Did you like the album? Did you hate the album? Let me know in the comments what you thought, and thanks for watching. Thanks, guys.